Captain Legion stepped off the transport shuttle onto Station Kepler 7, his boots echoing against the metallic floor. The massive space station rotated slowly in the void, creating artificial gravity that felt slightly different from Earth's pull. Neon lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows as dozens of alien species moved through the corridors like a living rainbow of colors and shapes. Another day, another smuggling ring. Jin muttered into his comm device. His partner, Agent Park Sumi, walked beside him, her scanner already beeping softly as it detected unusual energy signatures from the cargo bays ahead. The station buzzed with activity. Tall, blue-skinned Zentarians hold massive containers with their forearms, small, furry Krillians scurried between the larger species, their whiskers twitching as they chattered in high-pitched voices. Robotic workers moved in perfect synchronization, their metal limbs never stopping as they sorted through endless streams of cargo. Jin pulled out his identification badge. The holographic Terran Federation symbol glowing bright blue. Federation. Bureau, we're here about the missing plasma cores from the Andromeda shipping route. A six-legged creature with multiple eyes looked at him with what might have been confusion or annoyance. Jin couldn't tell, after 5 years working in space. He still struggled to read alien expressions. Sumi's scanner beeped louder. Jin, I'm getting massive energy readings from Bay 94. That's way more than the manifest shows. They moved through the crowded corridors, past shops selling exotic foods that glowed, and moved on their own. A mechanical arm vendor tried to sell Jin a replacement limb, not understanding that humans weren't supposed to have detachable parts. The smell of ozone and alien spices filled the air. Bay 94 sat in the station's outer ring, where the artificial gravity felt strongest. Jin pressed his palm against the access panel, and his federal clearance codes flashed green. The massive doors slid open with a hydraulic hiss inside. Towers of cargo containers reached toward the ceiling. Each one was marked with shipping codes from different star systems, but Sumi's scanner was going crazy, beeping so fast it almost sounded like a continuous tone. These containers are shielded, Sumi whispered, running her device along the nearest stack. Whatever's inside, someone really doesn't want us to know about it. Jin activated his enforcement authority and began scanning the shipping manifests. According to this, these containers hold agricultural supplies bound for the Tauseti colonies. But agricultural supplies don't need military-grade energy shielding. A loud crash echoed from deeper in the bay. Jin and Sumi drew their plasma pistols, the weapons humming to life with a soft blue glow. They moved carefully between the towering stacks of containers, their footsteps muffled by the station's ambient noise. Round the corner, they found 3 figures in dark clothing loading unmarked cases into a small cargo shuttle. The shuttle's engines were already warming up, creating heat distortions in the air. One of the figures was clearly human, but the other 2 were aliens Jin didn't recognize. Federation Bureau. Stop what you're doing and step away from the shuttle. The human smuggler dropped his case and raised his hands, but the aliens reached for weapons hidden in their clothing. Before Jin could react, a massive figure stepped out from behind the shuttle. Security Officer Vexstar stood nearly 8 feet tall, his reptilian scales gleaming under the bay's harsh lights. His species, the Drachma, were known for their strength and their belief that they were superior to all other races. Forearms ended in clawed hands, and his yellow eyes fixed on Jin with obvious hatred. Humans, Vexstar hissed, his voice like grinding stone. You do not belong in the pure zones of this station. This area is restricted to superior species only. Jin kept his weapon trained on the smugglers while trying to stay calm. Officer Vexstar, I'm Captain Legion of the Terran Federation Bureau. We have full authority to investigate smuggling operations anywhere in this sector. Your authority means nothing here. Soft skin. Vextar Sfroms moved with surprising speed, drawing weapons from holsters Jin hadn't even noticed. Two massive energy rifles pointed directly at Jin's chest. "You will leave immediately, or face the consequences." Sumi tried to step forward. "Officer, we are all law enforcement here. Let's work together to stop these criminals." But Vextar's attention never left Jin. Humans spread like a disease throughout the galaxy. You poison every system you touch with your weakness and your pathetic emotions. Pure zones exist to keep the galaxy clean. The smugglers use the distraction to grab their cases and run toward the shuttle. Jin started to pursue them, but Vextar's weapons powered up with a threatening whine. "Move and die, human." Suddenly, the bay filled with flashing lights a station. Security forces poured through the entrances, but instead of arresting the smugglers or disarming Vextar, they surrounded Jin and Sumi. "Security Chief Krelvox wants to see the humans," announced one of the officers, an insect-like creature with compound eyes. "They are charged with disturbing the peace and threatening a station security officer." Jin couldn't believe what was happening. "We're the victims here." Vextar drew weapons on federal agents, but the security forces were already confiscating Jin's weapon and placing energy restraints on his wrists. The restraints hummed with power, designed to stop even the strongest species from breaking free. Sumi watched helplessly as they dragged Jin away. Station jurisdiction laws meant she couldn't interfere, even though she'd witnessed everything. Her partner disappeared into the station's detention levels while the smuggler shuttle launched into SP. Ace, carrying their illegal cargo to unknown destinations. The corruption ran deeper than either of them had imagined. The detention center felt like stepping into a nightmare. Jin's cell was a cube of reinforced transparent aluminum, barely large enough for him to lie down with his legs bent. The walls hummed with energy fields designed to contain the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. But Jin wasn't a criminal. He was a federal agent who'd stumbled onto something bigger than simple smuggling. The air recyclers wheezed constantly, pumping in atmosphere that tasted metallic and stale. Jin's human lungs struggled with the mix designed for multiple alien species. Each breath felt like swallowing liquid metal. The temperature controls seemed broken too, switching randomly between freezing cold and sweltering heat every few hours. Other prisoners filled nearby cells, a massive creature with tentacles instead of arms pressed against its barrier, speaking in clicks and whistles Jin couldn't understand. To cells over, a robotic being sparked occasionally, its circuits damaged from what looked like torture. The mechanical prisoner's optical sensors flickered weakly whenever it tried to communicate. First time in alien lockup. "Human." The voice came from the cell across from Jin's. The speaker was another human, but his clothes were torn and his face showed weeks of poor treatment. "Name's Kim Hyun-woo. Been here 2 months on trumped-up charges." Jin moved closer to the barrier. "Captain Lee Jin, Federation Bureau. What happened to you?" Hyun-woo laughed bitterly. "Same thing that happened to you, probably. Caught the wrong aliens doing the wrong thing. They don't like humans poking round their business." He gestured to the other cells. "Half the prisoners in this block are here because they threatened someone's profit margins." The detention center's main corridor stretched out beyond their view, filled with floating security drones that moved like mechanical sharks. Their red scanning beams swept constantly, checking for escape attempts or unauthorized communication. Guard robots marched past in perfect formation, their heavy footsteps echoing through the metal structure. Meanwhile, Sumi sat in a dingy cantina, 3 levels up, nursing a drink that glowed faintly purple. The establishment catered to species that preferred dim lighting and questionable entertainment, perfect for gathering information without attracting attention. Her contact arrived exactly on time. Agent Yoon Da-yoon had worked undercover operations in this sector for years, building relationships with smugglers, traders, and information brokers. She slid into the booth across from Sumi, her eyes constantly scanning for surveillance. Your partner stepped in something deep, Dayun whispered, activating a small privacy shield that would scramble any listening devices. Vextar isn't just a racist security officer. He's part of a network that's been bleeding the station dry for months. Sumi leaned forward. What kind of network? Dayun pulled out a datapad, its screen showing shipping manifests and financial records. Chief Administrator Krelvox has been skimming from every major trade route that passes through Kepler-7. We're talking millions of credits in missing cargo, false documentation, and phantom shipping fees. The numbers were staggering. Entire shipments of rare minerals, medical supplies, and technology had been reported as lost in space when they'd actually been diverted to hidden storage facilities. The money was being funneled through fake corporations and shell companies spread across dozens of star systems. Jin caught them moving a shipment of military-grade plasma cores. Sumi realized they couldn't let him report it. Exactly. But framing a Federation agent is risky, even for them. They needed Jin to disappear quietly, broken by the system, rather than martyred by execution. Back in the detention center, Jin discovered just how brutal the system could be. Meal times brought nutrition paste that looked like grey mud and tasted worse. The paste was designed for alien digestive systems, leaving Jin constantly hungry and weak. His human metabolism couldn't properly process the synthetic proteins and minerals. The worst part was the interrogation sessions. Every few days, guards would drag Jin to a sterile white room where Administrator Krelvox waited with recording equipment and neural scanners. The alien administrator looked like a cross between a spider and a snake, with 8 legs supporting a long, flexible torso covered in dark green scales. Confess your crimes against station security. Krelvox would hiss, his multiple eyes never blinking. Admit you threatened Officer Vextar and attacked innocent merchants. Jin refused every time, knowing his words were being recorded for a show trial. The neural scanners tried to force the confession directly from his brain, but human neural patterns were different enough from alien ones that the machines couldn't get a clean reading. Your species is weak, Krelvox finally declared after the 5th failed session. You will break eventually. Humans always do. But Jin wasn't breaking, if anything. The harsh treatment was making him more determined. During the long hours alone, in his cell, he listened to conversations in the corridor, memorizing guard schedules and security protocols. The other prisoners shared information about the station's layout and the cropped official's hood. Put them there. Sumi's investigation was moving faster. Dayun had introduced her to Kim Taiho, a bartender who ran an information network spanning half the outer rim. His establishment, hidden in the station's low levels, served as a meeting place for smugglers, rebels, and anyone else who operated outside the law. Krelvox has been planning this for years, Taiho explained while mixing drinks that changed color as he stirred them. He needed humans to disappear quietly because the Federation has too much political power. Frame them as criminals, break them in detention, then claim they died resisting arrest. The plan was elegant in its cruelty. No one would investigate too deeply if Jin died in custody, especially if he'd been officially branded as a criminal who attacked security forces. But Sumi had evidence now. Financial records, shipping manifests, and witness statements from other prisoners who'd been framed by the same network. The corruption reached into every level of station administration, with alien supremacist groups providing ideological cover for a simple greed. Jin's imprisonment wasn't just about covering up one smuggling operation. It was about sending a message that humans weren't welcome in alien-controlled space. that the Federation's authority meant nothing compared to local power structures built on racism and corruption. The fight for justice was just beginning. Kim. Taiho's bar existed in the forgotten spaces between Station Kepler-7's main levels. Hidden behind a fake maintenance panel, the establishment had no official name and appeared on no station maps. Flickering holographic advertisements in dozens of alien languages covered the walls, advertising everything from illegal cybernetic implants to black market starship fuel. Su-me followed Dayun through a maze of service tunnels, past humming power conduits and recycling processes that filled the air with strange chemical smells. The hidden entrance required 3 different biometric scans and a password spoken in an alien dialect Sumi didn't recognize inside. The bar buzzed with quiet conversation in 20 different languages, a massive aquarium behind. The bar held creatures from water worlds across the galaxy, their bioluminescent bodies creating an ever-changing light show. Taiho himself was mixing drinks with Firearms while his cybernetic eye scanned for potential threats. "Your friend Jin isn't our first lost cause," Taiho said, sliding a glowing blue drink across the bar. 3 months ago, Federation Inspector Park Min-ho disappeared while investigating cargo theft. Before that, Agent Lee So-young vanished after asking too many questions about missing medical supplies. Dayun activated her portable computer, its holographic display showing personnel records stolen from station security. "Look at this pattern. Every human law enforcement officer who got close to Krellvox's operation either died in accidents or disappeared into the detention system." The records painted a disturbing picture. 12 human officers over the past year, all investigating different aspects of the same criminal network. Some had been found dead in their quarters, victims of supposed equipment malfunctions. Others had been transferred to distant assignments that didn't exist. The lucky ones had simply been warned off and reassigned. "Why target humans specifically?" Sumi asked, studying the data. A new voice answered from a corner booth, "Because we're the only ones who care about justice over profit." The speaker was a woman with graying hair and scars across her left cheek. Commander Choi Ji-hai, formerly of Federation Intelligence, emphasis on formerly. Ji-hai had been investigating the same network from a different angle when her own superiors sold her out. Now she worked with Taiho's resistance, gathering intelligence on corrupt officials and helping their victims escape. "The alien species running this station come from cultures where might makes right," Ji-hai explained. "They see our human concepts of equality and justice as weaknesses to exploit. Krellvox specifically targets humans because we threaten his power structure." Back in the detention center, Jin was learning the same lessons from his fellow prisoners. The human captives had formed an unofficial support network, sharing food, information, and hope. Kim Hyun-woo had become their informal leader, organizing work details and mediating disputes. "The guard rotation changes every 8 hours," Hyun-woo whispered during their daily exercise period in a cramped recreation area. "But there's a 15-minute gap when the overnight shift arrives. The security drones go into standby mode for system updates." Jin memorized the schedule while pretending to do push-ups. The recreation area's walls were lined with sensors, but the prisoners had learned to communicate through hand signals and coded conversations about meaningless topics. Another prisoner, Mechanic Seo Jun-ho, had spent weeks studying the detention center's layout. "The main power conduits run through the lower levels," he said while stretching. "If someone could access the maintenance tunnels, they could disrupt the energy barriers for maybe 10 minutes. The plan was dangerous and probably impossible, but it gave them hope. Jin began mapping escape routes in his mind, noting which corridors had fewer cameras and where the emergency evacuation pods were located. Meanwhile, Dayun was putting her technical skills to work in the station's computer networks. A small workshop officially registered as a starship repair facility, contained equipment sophisticated enough to hack into most civilian systems. The real trick was avoiding the military-grade security protecting Krelvox's personal files. "I'm in," Daryun announced, her fingers dancing across multiple holographic keyboards. "But this is just the outer layer. Krelvox has his important data stored in isolated systems that aren't connected to the main network." Sumi watched the stolen data stream across the workshop's main display. Financial records showed millions of credits flowing through fake companies. Shipping manifests revealed systematic theft on a massive scale. Communication logs proved coordination between corrupt officials across multiple star systems. This isn't just about one space station, Sumi realized. They're running operations throughout the Outer Rim territories. The resistance network was bigger than Sumi had imagined. Taiho's bar served as a coordination center for sympathetic beings across dozens of species, as Antarian doctor provided medical care for victims of station security. A Corellian engineer helped refugees escape to Federation space, even some. Drakmar opposed their species supremacist ideology. "We call ourselves the Void Runners," Jihai explained, gesturing to a star map covered in marked routes. "We help people escape corrupt systems and gather evidence of systematic oppression. Your partner's rest was just the latest example, but the resistance faced constant danger. Security forces regularly raided suspected safe houses. Informants were everywhere, paid to report unusual activity. The punishment for helping escaped prisoners was immediate execution. No questions asked, Jin's fellow prisoners shared stories of the Resistance's work. Families evacuated from stations before security crackdowns. Evidence smuggled to Federation authorities. Safe passage ranged for whistleblowers and refugees. Your partner Sumi isn't working alone, Han-Wu told Jin during their evening meal of grey nutrition paste. Word travels fast in the underground. Half the Outer Rim knows about your rest by now. The knowledge gave Jin strength to endure. Another day of interrogations and poor treatment. Somewhere above, people were fighting for justice. His sacrifice wasn't meaningless if it helped expose the corruption that was spreading like cancer through the galaxy's frontier regions. The resistance was growing stronger. One rescued prisoner and one stolen document at a time. But time was running out. Krelvox was planning something big, and Jin was the key to stopping it. The real fight was about to begin. The power went out exactly at 2,347 hours, just as Daryun had promised. Emergency lighting flickered on throughout Station Kepler-7, bathing the corridors in eerie red light. In the detention center, energy barriers holding the prisoners flickered and died as backup systems struggled to maintain. Power to critical areas. Jin was ready. He'd spent days loosening the ventilation grate in his cell during the daily power cycles, the moment darkness fell. He squeezed through the narrow opening into the maintenance shaft above. His human flexibility gave him an advantage over the larger alien prisoners who couldn't fit through such tight spaces. The shaft was barely wide enough for his shoulders, filled with pipes carrying recycled air and strange-smelling gases from the station's life support systems. Jin crawled forward in complete darkness, following the mental map he'd created from weeks of listening to the sounds above his cell. 20 meters ahead, light spilled through another grate. Jin could hear voices speaking in the clicks and hisses of station security. He held his breath as the guard robots marched past, their heavy footsteps echoing through the metal corridors. Their optical sensors swept back and forth, searching for escaped prisoners. Sumi waited in a stolen maintenance uniform 3 levels up, her heart pounding as she watched Daryun work at a computer terminal. The young mechanic's fingers flew across holographic keyboards, bypassing security systems with software tools that definitely weren't legal in Federation space. "Got it," Daryun whispered. "Emergency evacuation protocols are now active in Section 7. That should draw most of the guards away from the administrative levels. Through her earpiece, Sumi heard Taiho's voice from his hidden bar. Phantom radiation, they reported in the cargo bays. Have the security force is responding. You've got maybe 20 minutes before they figure out it's fake. Jin reached his destination. A junction where the ventilation system connected to the station's main data conduits. Just as Daryun had promised, an access panel waited for him, already unlocked by her remote hacking. He dropped into a narrow corridor lined with fiber optic cables that pulsed with flowing information. Administrator Krelvox's private office was 3 floors above, protected by security systems that would normally be impossible to bypass. But Daryun had spent weeks studying the station's computer networks, finding vulnerabilities in systems designed by different alien species that didn't always work well together. The elevator shaft was too dangerous, filled with security sensors that would detect any unauthorized movement. Instead, Jin climbed through service ladders that maintenance robots used to repair the station's outer hull. His human entrance served him well during the exhausting climb through zero-gravity sections, where the station's rotation didn't create artificial gravity. Sudashmi made her way through corridors filled with confused aliens trying to understand the emergency alerts. A group of Zentarian traders argued with security guards about evacuation procedures. Corellian families huddled together, their children crying in high-pitched voices that hurt Sumi's ears. She reached Krelvox's office just as Jin emerged from a maintenance hatch in the ceiling. The administrator's private workspace was a monument to corruption, filled with stolen artifacts from dozens of worlds and a massive aquarium containing rare fish, worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. The data core is behind that wall panel. Daryun's voice crackled through their earpieces, but it's protected by military-grade encryption. You'll need to physically access the quantum storage matrix. Jin found the hidden panel and pried. It opened with tools Sumi had brought. Inside, a crystal matrix the size of his fist glowed with stored information. This single device contained evidence of crimes spanning multiple star systems, enough to bring down Krelvox's entire network. But removing the data core triggered silent alarms throughout the station. Emergency blast doors slammed shut, sealing off entire sections. The fake emergency alerts stopped as security forces realized they'd been tricked. Lockdown protocol activated, announced a mechanical voice over the station speakers. All residents return to designated areas immediately. Security forces authorized to use deadly force against non-compliance. Sumi and Jin ran through corridors that were rapidly filling with armed guards. Robot sentries emerged from hidden alcoves, their weapons charging with ominous whining sounds. The station's security system was designed to contain even the most dangerous escaped prisoners. They reached Taiho's hidden bar just as the first wave of guards found their trail. The bartender was already packing equipment into portable cases while his alien customers scattered through secret exits. The main communication ray is on level 15. Taiho shouted over the sound of weapons fire echoing through the stations. Corridors, if you can reach it. Daryun can broadcast everything to the Federation. The journey became a running battle through the station's maze-like structure. Security drones swooped down from ventilation shafts, firing energy bolts that left scorch marks on the metal walls. Jin and Sumi returned fire with weapons borrowed from Taiho's hidden armory, fighting their way past robot sentries and alien guards. Commander Jihai appeared with a group of resistance fighters, providing covering fire from a side corridor. This way, we've secured a route to the communication center. The resistance had been preparing for this moment, stockpiling weapons and mapping escape routes throughout the station. Human refugees fought alongside sympathetic aliens, united by their hatred of the corrupt system that had oppressed them. Daryun's workshop became a fortress as the young mechanic worked frantically to establish a connection with Federation space. Her computers showed dozens of incoming security forces converging on their position. Blast doors sparked and groaned as cutting tools tried to break through. Connection established. Daryun announced, broadcasting on all Federation emergency channels. The data crystal's contents streamed across the galaxy at light speed, carried by quantum communication networks that connected thousands of worlds. Financial records, shipping manifests, communication logs, and video evidence of systematic corruption flowed to Federation headquarters, allied governments, and news networks throughout civilized space. But the broadcast was only the beginning. Security forces had broken through the outer defenses, filling the corridors with the sound of heavy weapons, and shouted orders in a dozen different languages. The real battle for justice was just starting, and they were outnumbered 100-1. The quantum communication burst from Station Kepler-7 reached Earth Command in 3 hours, traveling through relay stations scattered across the galaxy. Admiral Choi Woo-jin was reviewing fleet deployment reports when his aide burst into his office with a data pad containing the most damaging evidence of corruption he'd seen in 30 years of service. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," Lieutenant Park Sang-ho said, his voice shaking with anger. Captain Legion wasn't just rested. He was framed as part of a systematic campaign against human officers throughout the Outer Rim. Woo-jin studied the stolen files with growing fury. Financial records showed millions of credits stolen from legitimate trade. Communication logs revealed coordination between corrupt officials across dozens of star systems. Most damning of all were the video recordings showing human prisoners being tortured in detention centers supposedly operating under galactic law. "Get me the Zentorian ambassador and the Corellian trade minister," Woo-jin ordered. "If their species are involved in this conspiracy, they'll answer for it, and prepare the Fifth Fleet for immediate deployment." News of the corruption spread across the galaxy faster than any military fleet could travel. On the ocean world of Aquatica Prime, Zentorian leaders watched in shock as evidence revealed their own security forces participating in the persecution of human officers. The four-armed blue giants prided themselves on honor and military discipline, but the recording showed their people taking bribes and falsifying reports. The Corellian homeworld erupted in protests as millions of the small, furry beings demanded accountability from their government. Corellian merchants had built their reputation on fair dealing and honest trade, but the evidence showed their shipping companies helping to launder stolen goods throughout the outer territories. Even species that had no love for humanity found themselves disgusted by the systematic corruption. The proud Drachma warrior clans, despite their belief in racial superiority, valued strength and honesty in battle. Seeing their fellow Drachma like Vexstar hiding behind lies and false charges brought shame to their entire culture. Back on Station Kepler-7, Jin and Sumi fought a desperate battle through corridors filled with security forces. The Resistance had turned Tao's bar into a fortress, but they were running out of ammunition and time. Robot sentries advanced through clouds of smoke while energy weapons carved glowing holes in the metal walls. Federation fleet detected at Jump Point 7. Daryun announced from her computer station, 23 ships including 3 dreadnoughts. They'll reach us in 40 minutes. But 40 minutes felt like forever when facing overwhelming odds. Security Chief Krelvox himself appeared in the main corridor, his 8 legs clicking against the metal floor as he advanced with a squad of heavily armed guards. His snake-like torso swayed hypnotically while his multiple eyes focused on Jin with pure hatred. "You think your Federation friends will save you, human?" Krelvox hissed, his voice echoing through speakers built into his cybernetic armor. "This station operates under local jurisdiction. Your ships have no authority here." Din stepped forward, still holding the data crystal that contained evidence of Krelvox's crimes. "Maybe not. But they have the authority to broadcast the truth. To every civilized world in the galaxy, your corruption ends today. The final battle raged through the station's central hub as resistance fighters made their last stand. Commander Ji-Hai led a group of human refugees in a desperate charge against robot sentries. Alien sympathizers from a dozen species fought alongside them, united by their desire for justice over profit. Then the lights dimmed as massive ships dropped out of hyperspace around Station Kepler-7. Admiral Wu Jin's flagship, the Destroyer, Soul's Pride, led a formation that included vessels from 6 different alien governments. The Zentarians had sent their honor guard cruiser Blue Thunder. The Krillians deployed their fastest diplomatic ship, Whisker's Hope. Even the Drachma contributed a heavy battleship, Scale and Claw, Station Kepler-7. "This is Admiral Choi Woo-jin of the Terran Federation Navy," the Admiral's voice boomed through. "Every speaker on the station, you will immediately release all prisoners held on false charges and surrender Administrator Krelvox for trial under Galactic law. Failure to comply will result in boarding action by joint fleet forces." Krelvox's response was to order his remaining security forces to execute all the human prisoners, but his own guards were no longer following orders. The evidence broadcast throughout the galaxy had shown them the true nature of their administrator's crimes. Even the robot sentries hesitated as their programming conflicted with direct orders to commit murder. The station's defense systems tried to engage the fleet, but Da Yun had spent the battle hacking into critical systems, weapons platforms powered down just as they were needed most. Shields flickered and failed. The corrupt administration that had seemed so powerful was crumbling from within. Boarding pods launched from the fleet, carrying joint forces from multiple species. Human Marines fought alongside Zentarian honor guards and Corellian special forces. The diversity of the boarding parties sent a clear message that this wasn't just human justice, but galactic justice. Krelvox made one final attempt to escape in his private shuttle, but fighter craft from 3 different fleets surrounded him before he could reach the hyperspace jump point. The corrupt administrator who had terrorized the Outer Rim for years was finally cornered with nowhere to run. The trials that followed became the most watched legal proceedings in galactic history. Krelvox and his accomplices faced judges from multiple species, ensuring that no single government could influence the outcome. The evidence was overwhelming, the testimonies heartbreaking, and the verdicts unanimous. Jin stood in the courtroom as the final sentence was read. Not only was he completely exonerated, but the Galactic Court publicly praised his courage in exposing the corruption. His promotion to commander came with assignment to a new joint task force dedicated to fighting organized crime throughout the outer territories. The broader impact was even more significant. New interspecies cooperation protocols were established to prevent future corruption. Joint investigation teams with members from multiple governments would monitor trade routes and space stations. A new court system with rotating judges from different species would handle cases involving interspecies crime. Most importantly, the galaxy had learned that human values of justice and equality weren't signs of weakness, but sources of strength that could unite diverse species against common threats. The courage shown by Jin, Sumi, and their allies had proven that doing the right thing mattered more than profit or political power. Standing on the bridge of his new commandship, the joint investigation vessel Harmony's Edge, Commander Lee, Jin looked out at the stars and smiled. The galaxy was a big place, full of corruption and injustice. But it was also full of good people from every species who were willing to fight for what was right. The war for justice would never truly end, but humanity had shown the galaxy that it was a war worth fighting. The end.